All right, Nick, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. The draft has passed us. The undrafted free agent signings have passed us, and we like to dig in and see. Let's look at the undrafted free agent classes. Is there any hidden gems the Dolphins have brought in that we think they like, and I think they like as well? And this latest report shows that I like this guy for the Dolphins, but also the Dolphins seem to really like this guy as well with what they've given him. I think it's going to be big for them going forward. But before we get into that, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, interesting undrafted free agent signing for the Dolphin, especially with what they've given him so far. Seems like it could be a really promising addition. Let's get into the tweet talking about it, update everyone's memory, and then we'll go into the details on it on the other side. So this is at Florida Sports Buzz or Barry Jackson on X. It says big signing. Dolphins gave six figures guaranteed to Ole Miss safety John Saunders Jr., who is coveted by dozens of teams per source. He had 3 interceptions in each of the past 2 years at Ole Miss and an SEC leading 4 forced fumbles last season. A takeaway machine comes to Miami. I think this is a really interesting get for the Dolphins, who were in desperate need of some secondary help after the, I guess, inevitable departure of Jalen Ramsey. I'm sure they're going to move on from him, but as to when that's going to actually be, we're not so sure. But how good is this guy? Is Saunders Jr. somebody worth looking into? I think definitely yes. Let's first bring up his grades from the last few seasons. Playing in the SEC, I think there's a lot of good stuff to look at here, especially since he moved to Ole Miss. He started out at Miami, Ohio, obviously a little lower level of college football play. But when he moved to Ole Miss in the SEC, he just got better. In this past year, he did some really, really good stuff. Obviously, they talked about takeaway machine, really great job doing that. But also in the run defense game, he was great run defender. 88.2 run defense grade for him last season. He was a sure tackler as well. 85.3 tackling grade for him. Decent coverage grade as well. Just overall, a really solid player. So for the Dolphins to get him as undrafted, I think that's really important. And you think, okay, play on the field is good. His PFF grades are good. We see him make the turnovers. He has to be like unathletic. He has to be a small guy, someone that's really not adding up in that aspect. But no, I think he checks those boxes as well, which makes this even more interesting. Let's pull up his RAS score, his relative athletic score, and you look at this. Look at his size, 6'2", very high grades as far as safety in his RAS at 9.8 out of 10, 211 pounds, 9.8 out of 10. Again, broad jump and vertical jump pretty decent there as well as his lateral agility in the 3-cone drill, giving him a very high 8.05 out of 10 relative athletic score. This guy, very, very athletic, good size, good lateral agility, good explosiveness in his jumping ability. So I think this guy's the full package. He makes the plays. He's got great performance on the field. Then on top of that, he's got good size, good explosiveness. So I think the Dolphins really have got themselves a steal of a player here, and they think so as well with obviously the guaranteed money they give him. I think this guy is somebody to look for to make this Dolphins roster. Could be a big addition for them going forward. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick, but before we get to you, Dolphins fans, in the comment section below, let us know what your thoughts are. We're talking about Dolphins, undrafted free agents. There's quite a bit of them out there now for the Dolphins. They made some really great signings. So let us know. Is Saunders the guy that's at the top of your list, or are there some other undrafted free agents out there that you're really liking, thinking about somebody who can make the roster for this Dolphins team? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about this latest move for Miami?
So there's lots to really like about it. Now, of course, we'll all coach it, of course, under the context that he is an undrafted free agent, right? It's not like it's a first round pick or a second round pick. So let's be very clear here. We're not saying John Saunders Jr. is just this amazing prospect that should have gone in the top 10 and fell out of the draft completely. And the Dolphins were right there to scoop him up, right? He has flaws as a prospect. And namely is he doesn't do anything great. He's sort of good at everything. He's got a lot of experience, but nothing flies off the tape, right? He's got a lot of good attributes, a very productive guy, a playmaker, but he just doesn't look like an elite level NFL safety, according to the scouting reports, according to the analysts. So that's how these guys can fall out of the draft. They're good players. They play well on Saturdays. They just don't quite look the part for whatever reason. Now that also means those are the kind of guys that can also be big time steals, because if they can translate their game, if they can develop, if they can figure out to find what they're good at the NFL, then they can actually get the job done, because again, they're actually good football players. And I think John Saunders Jr. can fit in very nicely with the Miami Dolphins, because his skill set, defensive playmaking at the safety position, is exactly what the Dolphins need. Over the past 3 years, the Miami Dolphins defense has averaged 23rd in the NFL in terms of takeaways, average over the last 3 years in their NFL ranking, 23rd. You look at a kid here in Saunders, he's a guy that can come in. He is a walking turnover machine, 11 career interceptions at the collegiate level. That is a lot for any defensive player. Not a lot of turnovers, at least compared to the NFL, happen at the collegiate game, just because of the way the passing game is. There's a lot of screens, bubble screens, QB draw kind of stuff, running quarterback. It's a much less turnover centric game, at least compared to the National Football League. Despite that, Saunders did a great job forcing those takeaways. He did it at the MAC level, Miami of Ohio. Love the fact he went to Miami and now he's going to Miami. That's kind of a cool little diatribe there. But you look at it, he also continued that performance at Ole Miss, big time SEC football. And people remember Ole Miss, they're a high powered, high flying, no huddle offense. That means the defense is on the field a lot. They're all about forcing big plays and turnovers. Here's a guy in Saunders that they specifically recruited from Miami to force those turnovers, and he came in and did that job for the Ole Miss Rebels. So again, we're looking at a guy where he's been recruited, he's been sought after for this specific skill set, and he executed at the MAC level, at the SEC level, and now the Dolphins went after him. And look, they spent a healthy amount of money, right? Only the elite, only the sought after undrafted free agent prospects get that six-figure guaranteed money. Saunders was a guy a lot of people were after for the specific fact of his playmaking ability. Again, he proved it at every level of the college ranks, and the Miami Dolphins have gotten themselves a really good potential steal here. Look, there's a long way to go. Can he make the roster? Can he find a way to get on the field, right? There's those questions that'll have to be answered. But if you look at what he does well, it's exactly what the Miami Dolphins are looking for. And I think even if he doesn't become a big-time contributor, just having guys on your defense that are turnover focused, it has a way of becoming contagious, and you get other guys involved too. That's one of the things I always say when you look at defenses and you try and figure out, well, how do we force more takeaways? You can't teach guys getting after the football. You can't teach guys that are ball hawks. It's just something you either have or you don't. And it's a vibe in a defense. It's a culture. It's why sometimes you can bring in a new defensive coordinator. Team can be exactly the same. You go from 10 takeaways to 50, right? How does that happen? It's just a culture shift. It's a vibe shift. You can do that with coaches, and you can do that bringing in just players. Even if guys aren't starters, they become takeaway guys in practice. It's contagious. People start flying around trying to force those turnovers. One thing leads to another, and you go from a bottom 10 takeaway team to a top 10 takeaway team seemingly overnight. The Miami Dolphins here with Saunders, I think, are trying to use that strategy. They made it with some other moves, of course. I look at Adams, of course, the young player from UCF, also undrafted free agent in the defensive backfield. Very similar kind of mindset there. It's clear the Miami Dolphins are trying to do everything they can with the low-cost options that they're forced to use to address the takeaway problem. And look, Saunders is a guy, again, long way to go. Going to coach it as much as I can and say, listen, this guy is not a first-round talent at all. But if you look at his production, if you look at his playmaking ability, if you look at his fit, there's a really good chance here he could become a quality player for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, Nick, and I think you brought it up, and it's really important. This is, a guy who he's got good enough attributes everywhere as far as his playmaking ability, what he does on the field, but this is also a position of need for the Dolphins. If you look around their defensive backfield, even at corner, Storm Duck, great name, hasn't really lived up to it on the field. Then Cam Smith, I'll say, was very lacking last year, had a terrible season last year for the Dolphins. Then the defensive backfield, Ashton Davis and Malifano. I mean, no one screams like starting safety, future of the team back there. So they bring in two undrafted guys, and then they have two DB and a safety they get in the fifth round, late fifth round of the draft, pick 150 and 155 respectively. So the Dolphins, they really went out, didn't attack the defensive backfield position here. So I think by dipping into undrafted free agency, trying to lock up some guys they thought were interesting, thought were valuable, I think it gives Saunders a better than zero chance to get some playing time if he makes the team this year. Just like I said, there's not a whole lot of depth. There's not a whole lot of star power in the Dolphins defensive backfield. I think they really need to step up and get some guys to come in. Maybe the fifth rounders they got are going to pan out and be big time players here. I'm not exactly sure, but I think Saunders coming in is very intriguing player, and the fact they gave him the guaranteed money shows this could be a guy that step up. And don't be surprised if you see him having some playing time this year for the Dolphins. It could be one to watch on in training camp and OTAs, all of those things, because Saunders is a guy who has the ability to be a solid player for the Dolphins.
And just a few final points to end on here. When you look at what Miami is doing in defensive backfield, specifically the safety position, you have to look at the context and their competition. If you look at how the safety position is valued, and you look at the teams in the National Football League that spend the fewest at the safety position, one thing, is very, very clear. The teams that spend the less money at safety are usually teams that make deep playoff runs. I'll give you the names here. The Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Detroit Lions, and the Philadelphia Eagles are 28, 29, 30, and 31st in the NFL with spending at the safety position. The Miami Dolphins actually currently are number 32. Now, does that mean if you spend a few dollars at the safety position than everyone else, does it mean you're going to win Super Bowls? Of course not. But what it means is that the smart teams, the winning teams, have clearly realized that the safety position is one where you don't need to use a lot of capital. You can use late round, day 3 guys. You can use undrafted free agents like Saunders here and fill out your roster that way with cheap players and open up dollars for other positions. That's what teams from the Lions to the Chiefs to the Eagles to the Bills have all figured out. The Miami Dolphins are using that same strategy. And if they can continue to keep that focused, clear strategy and look at guys like Saunders or some of these other, day 3 undrafted free agent guys to address this position, it is still a position of need, but they got playmakers, guys with experience, guys who have played in highest level of college football, SEC, Saunders, Ole Miss. That's big boy football, undeniably so. You get a guy there, you get a lot of value, potential steal. It follows the same strategy, not spending a lot of money at the safety position. Hopefully, it frees up dollars for them to spend at other positions of need when it comes to this upcoming off seasons, when it comes to locking down star players for the future, some of these young guys. I think when I look at Miami right now, people aren't giving them a lot of credit, and for good reason, in terms of how they've handled the salary cap over the past few years. But so far, at least this offseason, considering the constraints they've had, they've done a really good job getting a lot of value with their draft picks, with their undrafted free agent guys at positions where it makes sense to do so. Give some credit to the Dolphins front office for finding a way to get it done. And like you said, keep an eye on Saunders. I really think having a playmaking, ball hawking safety, having that attitude among the rookie class during rookie mini camps, then OTAs and training camp and preseason, even if he doesn't become an impact player, that attitude will be infectious. And I think we'll see more turnovers out of the Dolphins secondary because of it.